Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Closed Doors. And as you can see, it's not raining again, but it doesn't look nice. But hey, inside it's warm. Okay, the workshop for today is actually the workshop cosplay. And the cool thing for today is actually that I'm teaching it in English because we have a foreign student. And it goes for all you guys. If you are in the Netherlands and you think like, I would really like to do a workshop with Frank, just let me know in advance and we can actually do all the workshops also in English. So cosplay, what is it all about? Well, let's go inside and I'll tell you. Okay guys, I'm in the studio and today the workshop cosplay. Now, I already explained in the previous video about cosplay why this workshop is so important. And the reason is very simple. Think about playing guitar or any other instrument or doing sports. The moment you do something that's really hard, where you really have to practice for, something where you have to push your body to the limit to do it, after that everything you do, what you normally did, is a lot easier. That's how you make progress. Now, you may or may never shoot cosplay. Still, this workshop will literally hone your skill in expression, extreme lighting, extreme poses, because where you normally can get away with a normal expression, with cosplay, if you have a vampire killer that hits a vampire, it isn't like this, oh yeah. Now it's more like, yeah, you know, it's totally over the top expressions. With normal photography, I always tell people it's acting on 1/1000th of a second. With cosplay, it's literally acting, really pushing yourself, pushing your model way over the top, because after that you get a stunning image. And remember, today it's not about fashion, it's not about glamour, it's about superheroes, it's about everything that's connected to a fantasy world, but most of all a world where there's always a little bit of struggle, frustration, and you really have to show that in those images. Today we're also going to do something else. It's the first workshop I'm ever going to show the free mask system from Hensel. Now, what is the free mask system? It's actually a very clever idea. We have two groups of strobes and a white backdrop. The first group of strobes is the front group. We just light our model the way that we normally do. So for example, a beauty dish on her face and an accent light. That's shot 1. The second shot is actually a white backdrop. So we have two strobes on the backdrop with background reflectors. And that backdrop has to be pure white or close to white. Now make sure that when you light something like this, it's very important that you light it correctly for the following step. Now with this special remote control, what happens is the first shot that you take is the front group. So that means that your model is correctly lit the way that you want it, and you have a dark gray or grayish backdrop because the white isn't lit. The moment the second time the camera goes off, the backdrop gets lit, pure white, but the front doesn't. So you have this, shot 1, shot 2, shot 1, shot 2. So when you go into Photoshop, you have one image with your model perfectly lit, accent lights, nice face, and a dark backdrop. The second image is pure white and a silhouette. This is why it's so important that you light this correctly and have no spill light on your model. Now, the cool thing is there are two solutions. If you want it fast, for example, for event photographers or school photographers, and you want to take the image and immediately show your client, this is the new backdrop. Do you want another backdrop? No problem. Other backdrop, other backdrop. Do you want to move to left, to right? No problem. And you just move. Imagine how much more money you can make with event photography. So anyway, if you want to do it like that, that's why you have to have two shots and a perfect exposure. Now, the other thing we're going to do today is actually we're going to use Photoshop. So I'm not going to use the software that you can get extra with FreeMask. I'm actually going to use Photoshop. Now, in Photoshop, it's actually very easy. Yesterday, because I did test it, of course, yesterday we did a cutout in about 20 seconds. What you do is you have the original image and you have that white image with silhouette. And you just create a layer mask. And you just put them over each other and you have the perfect cutout. All the hairs were perfect, everything here was perfect. It literally blew my mind. The only thing is I have to shoot from a tripod. Luckily we have Benro carbon fiber tripods here that we normally use for video, because I'm not really a big photography on tripod kind of guy. But you have to shoot this on a tripod for one very simple reason. Those two shots have to align perfectly. So that means if you, for example, shoot handheld and you do a little bit like this, You could correct it by just shifting the two images a little bit. But if you also change the angle up and down just a little bit, everything will be twisted and skewed, and it doesn't fit right, and you won't get a perfect cutout. So if you do something like this, make sure that you shoot it on a tripod. Now, you might wonder like, hey Frank, it sounds easy. Is it really that easy? Again, we did it yesterday in about 20 seconds, but I promise you guys today, it's just a workshop. So we're going to show you behind the scenes with the workshop, and after the workshop I'm going to do, with every scene I'm going to tell you what I did lighting setup wise and show you the results. But next week or the week after, I'm going to film a dedicated video about this really cool free mask system. So we're going to show you with the images I shoot today, how you set it up. I'm going to show you very simply how you do the editing, and also how the software works, because for event photographers and school photographers, the software is actually the best solution, because again, you just shoot two images and the software immediately does the cutout and puts a backdrop behind. For me, 20 seconds work in Photoshop is, well, just as easy, and I have total control and I can do it with raw images. So join us for today's episode of Behind the Closed Doors, the cosplay workshop. And I'm going to teach it in English, but hey, for you guys, we cut the audio out, so you just hear the music. If you like what we do, subscribe to our channel, leave comments below, and of course smash that like button. Most of all, hit that bell notification so you get a notification. And guys, please remember, these are behind the scenes videos. A lot of people email me like, Frank, I love those tutorials in Behind the Closed Doors. Those are not tutorials. If you really want in-depth tutorials where I go way more into the finer part of metering, lighting, creativity, coaching your model and whatnot more, check out the link below for our tutorial videos. And we keep the prices really friendly. So go on now over and get those tutorials, guys. And you also support our work. Hey, enough talk. Let's go to our models and the cosplay workshop. Let's go.
Just like a dream, yeah, you and me. Can't help but feel it's so unreal. Stay high with you. Your silhouette makes me forget all of my fears. Just disappeared when I'm with you. Ooh, 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 I give you a taste. Now when you with me, you can have your cake. Just let me like you do. Oh, let me like you do. All I ever wanted, someone like you that would love me like you do. Dreams of being haunted. You're my ghost, yeah. Come on, love me like you do. I'm giving you the best, boy, the best you'll ever see, and you can have it all. Now give me yours and be the best that you can be, then you can have it all. You're moving closer, I feel the heat. Hands on your chest, you're all I want. Now keep me warm, just like a dream. I'm coming in. The fantasy, it never leaves when I'm with you. Ooh, 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 I give you a taste. Now when you're with me.
Okay guys, first setup was actually the one with free masks. So we used 2 strobes on the front, group 1, 2 strobes on the back, group 2, some flex in between to make sure that no light spill is hitting the model, and you just set your camera on fast shooting. In the case of the Sony, I set it on middle speed, and you take 2 shots very quick after each other. You get one properly lit one with only a white backdrop and actually a cutout. You put them together in Photoshop and you're done. Again, as promised before, I will do a video on this the next week or the week after to show you exactly how it works. Now, during the workshop, one of the students actually had a great idea, and this doesn't work for the Sony, but check for your camera if it works. He just put it on bracketing and 1/10 of a stop over and only 2 shots. And at that point you can put it on the fastest setting. You could just press the button and it would only take 2 shots because it's on bracketing, 1/10 of a stop over. And because you're shooting on manual, hey, it works like a charm. So that was the first setup. Let's go to the second setup.
I
second setup is absolutely a setup that I love to do. Blue backdrop or any other color, one spot on the backdrop to really make that separation, two strobes from the side to give it a little bit more highlights, and one strobe from the front. It's actually a very flat lighting setup, and that's something that you don't see a lot from me because, well, somehow I like the more contrasty stuff, but hey, we can also do flat lighting, of course. If you can do contrasty, you can do flat lighting. And the cool thing about this is because you're lighting it pretty flat, there's not a real shadow to give that three-dimensionality. Now the opposite of shadow is highlights. So we actually use highlights to give it a little bit more three-dimensionality and make the image a little bit more pop. And of course the girls, they had crazy outfits. I absolutely love it. And of course with a shot like this, I just love that blue backdrop. So really cool shots. Let's go to the next setup.
My heart away, went a bit too far, so wrong. Oh no, open up my soul, but babe, how could I know you're cold? Shame on you, should have seen what you were like, dangerously nice. You got me all you fooled me once, but I ain't falling twice. All lies. Oh Lord, I ain't gonna run. My rise has just begun. I'll shine. Shame on you. Should have seen what you were like. Dangerously nice. You got me all
Now this setup was a little bit creepy. We had guys actually run. I'm just kidding. But this was of course inspired by Ring or Ringu, depending on which version you watch, the American or the Japanese version. I actually advise the original one. It's way more creepy. So what I did, the first setup, we actually only shot the model who was like the really creepy one. So we use one spot on the model with a grid, the TV in the back, and behind the TV there's actually a blue strobe and a little bit of smoke. Now it's not really a scene from the movie, but hey, you want to give it a little bit extra, and people just love shooting with smoke, so we just added a little bit of smoke. The second part, that's actually where we brought the second model in. Now this is where a lot of things can go wrong. The first shot is easy. You just light your model and that's it. Now with the second shot, you actually see that we have a second model. So you have two models. So where do you put your lighting on? Now a lot of people will go like, okay, I put my lighting on the first model, I put my lighting on the second model. Now in our case, we use the strip light. Now do remember that adding tension to a shot or mood or atmosphere isn't all about just making sure that sees f8 and sees f8. When you look at real life, and especially horror movies, you can really pinpoint the action by using one spot on, for example, the villain. And then just leave the victim a little bit in the dark. And that's exactly what we did here. I wanted to make sure that the hand did show up, but was really, really dark. And during the retouching, somebody said, I would like the hand to be a little bit more visible. So we actually just lit the hand just a little bit more in Photoshop by just adding a little bit of shadow opening on that side. So it's really easy to do. For me personal, the hand could be a little bit darker. So in the final result, you actually see the hand a little bit darker. But if you want to open it up, just use a little bit of the shadow slider. Don't touch the face because I love the way that it's so dark. And just open up the hand just a little bit to give it more separation. So those were the shots for today. I hope you liked what we did in Behind Closed Doors. So I give you a little bit of explanation and of course show you the behind the scenes. Because in all honesty, I think the behind the scenes videos, you see them from a lot of people. And at one point they can become a little bit repetitive. So I thought if I just cut it up in scenes and just tell you what my thought process was of the lighting setups and how we did it, it can make it a little bit more interesting. Leave comments below if you agree with me. Another thing is, of course, if you want real in-depth instructional videos, make sure you check out the link below. The tutorials are way more in-depth and way more interesting. And finally, and I really need your input for this, we're testing a new camera. It's not a new camera, it's a camera we already had. I'm not going to tell you which camera it is. I'm going to tell you that later. Leave comments below if you like these video clips better than the previous ones. And we're not using a gimbal, so I want to stress that we're not using a gimbal. So I'm very curious to see if you guys like this quality better than the previous versions. So let me know in the comments below. For now, I'm signing off. Next week, we have 2 workshops, classical lighting and another one. So next weekend, 2 behind closed doors, and you never know what's going to happen in between. So see you again next time. Bye guys, have a great weekend.